My name is Hasha Vathsavayi, and I'm working as a product manager at Roche. And I have a background in software engineering, and I'm passionate about technology and have worked in different areas such as DevOps, edge computing, platform engineering, and artificial intelligence. Okay, so I mean, as per Gartner report, like shadow IT accounts to 30% to 40% of IT spending in large enterprises. And and the average company, wastes $135,000 on unnecessary software licenses, and it is clearly visible in case of SaaS tools, because in big organizations, each development team has own credit card. So, using credit card, they go to cloud and like SaaS products, and they buy the SaaS products and have licenses for it. And I believe it is also evident for HCP stack as well, because anyone with credit card can go to HCP and can launch like own vault or own boundary application and start using it. And then like a Gartner report from 2020 says that like 1/3 of successful cybersecurity attacks come from like data stored in these shadow IT platforms, because there is no accountability on who is managing these platforms, and sometimes even the actual developer who started these platforms like leaves the organization and no one knows how to manage it or maintain it. And then the average cost of data breach is around $4.35 million. So the shadow IT platforms are very expensive to manage, and in the end, like they incur a lot of cost to the organization. And finally, IT tool sprawl is one of the 10 most monitoring challenges for CIOs, because it's very difficult to get accountability on, different platforms being managed in the organization. And how does it affect companies like the IT tool sprawl? For example, with a lot of similar tools and with a lot of tools working in being used by different business areas, there's increased cost and lack of collaboration, because in many cases, development teams, they are in like their own silo and own departments, and they don't collaborate with other departments on, even if they're using same tools. And that's what we noticed in our organization. And the second thing is that there's a lack of visibility on the amount of similar tools being used, and also consolidation is a big problem without accountability. And in addition to that, the development teams, instead of focusing on like doing actual or developing actual IT products that drive organization growth, they spend time in managing these shadow IT platforms, and this decreases productivity, and in turn they have like less time for innovation. And finally, it also increases potential risks, data breaches, and security issues, because there is no governance on how these platforms are being built and managed. Okay, so to understand the scale of the problem, what I'm talking about, I will now walk through a brief overview of Roche Group. So at a glance, so the Roche Group is founded in Basel in 1896, and the family still holds majority stake. And we are over 103,000 employees worldwide, and it's one of the, most sustainable healthcare company as per Dow Jones Index. And it's a leader in diagnostics and pharma. And in 2022 alone, we have invested around 14.1 billion into R&D. And I think this is in 2022, we have conducted 29 billion tests with our diagnostics products. And we have been a reliable partner during COVID-19 pandemic. And on the WHO list of essential medicines, we have 32 medicines that are termed as essential for people around the world. And in 2022 alone, we have treated 14.2 million people with our medicines. This is just to give you a glance of Roche Group and how big it is. And then coming to our global footprint, we are over 103,000 employees, like I mentioned, and working as one across functions, companies, and across the world. We have immense, reach in over 150 countries, and that helps us to, quickly release products that help patients in a lot of these countries. And as a global company, we focus on pharmaceuticals, diagnostics, and health insights. And having both diagnostics and pharmaceuticals in one group is an added advantage for us. And in many cases, these different organizations, when they're working on technical challenges, they collaborate together and also share research facilities. Okay, now I will talk about what we do at Roche, like what I do at Roche. So I especially work for Roche Informatics, which is a centralized IT department in Roche. And what we do is that we offer products like DevOps tools for software engineers so that they can develop their software, and it helps them, the tools has to help them to accelerate their software development and delivery. And so we are an enabler for DevOps practices at Roche. And at the same time, we support customers in migrating from their legacy infrastructure or legacy on-prem infrastructure to cloud infrastructure and hybrid infrastructure so that they can scale their workloads as per the growing customer demands. And one of our main goal is that we don't want our development teams to spend time in building or maintaining their own tool chain. Instead of that, we want them to focus on creating products that serve our patients and drive actual business value. And I'll give you a brief overview on how we came to, we became like a centralized DevSecOps team. So like in many organizations, we have different business units, and each business unit have their own set of, let's say, DevOps or DevSecOps toolchain and practices. And we noticed that because of that, we had a lot of tool sprawl, and at the same time, there was no sharing of best practices between different business areas. And to solve this problem, our organization took approach of consolidating and harmonizing tool chains, and at the same time reducing footprint, and created a centralized DevSecOps team. That's where I belong. So we are a one-stop shop for all DevOps teams working in Roche. And our goal is to make sure that we align the DevOps toolchains used across the organization, and at the same time enable, promote knowledge sharing and reusing best practices or common patterns used across the organization. And at the same time, we provide consultancy on adoption of DevOps across the organization. And now I will talk about our HashiCorp journey. Maybe this is common with some of you as well. So how it all started in our company is that in 2019, early 2019, several internal business stakeholders, they have started using open source Vault and Consul. And over the time, we noticed there are multiple different offerings in different parts of the organization. And we, as a central IT team, have started working with the business stakeholders, and then created enterprise offering around Vault and Consul, and then started onboarding users to these platforms. So in 2021, we have rolled out enterprise Vault and started onboarding customers. And in 2022, we got demand for, we use Terraform heavily across the organization. and we got demand for managing Terraform state in an efficient way. So we rolled out Terraform Cloud and Nomad for managing containerized and non-containerized workloads. And right now, we are looking into implementing zero trust security use cases. So we're exploring HashiCorp boundary and in some cases implementing it for identity-based access and for removing some of the bottlenecks like kind of jump hosts or firewalls in some areas. Okay, now I will talk about the challenge we face with respect to tool sprawl and how our global scale has given rise to massive tool sprawl. So what we do is that our main goal is to serve internal stakeholders, which are like DevOps teams or software engineering teams. But these stakeholders are quite diverse and they are spread across regions. As you see, we operate in over 150 countries. And because of that, we continuously have like teams coming from different parts and they have different use cases as well. And in addition to that, we operate in different domains. For example, we operate in diagnostics, pharmaceuticals, diabetes care, and health insights. And here we truly have like different use cases. For example, in health insights, we do edge computing, where the devices are at the edge, and the kind of use cases are quite different. And then we also develop medical like diagnostics products, which are in secure network. So there, the customer use case is a bit different. And the heterogeneity of the company and the global presence have led to massive platform sprawl. In some cases, we have like over 10 or 20 or even more instances of the same tools used by different parts of the organization. And this has like increased, security risks, like compliance issues and also like costs for the organization. And as we operate in the regulated industry, compliance is very important for us. We have to adhere to some compliance standards, and we need to make sure that all the tools being used or managed in the organization are following these compliance standards. Okay, now I will talk about how we use HashiCorp in the company. So right now we use HashiCorp Vault for secret management and encryption. It's already being used across like different business units in the company. And Consul is used for service discovery and registry use cases, and in some cases for service mesh use cases, and also for a multi-cloud use case as well. And we have a large footprint on Terraform. We do multi-cloud infrastructure and do a lot of our healthcare, digital products run on cloud. So for that, we use Terraform. And we also have footprint on Nomad for workload and container orchestration. And a lot of these HashiCorp tools are being used in the organization. But at the same time, we notice that because of the distributed nature of the organization, there's a tool sprawl in HashiCorp stack as well. You have multiple HashiCorp vaults or console for, owned by different teams for managing their own secrets. So why we want to reduce the tool sprawl is that because of the same platforms across different parts of the organization, it is very difficult for us to enforce security best practices, and platform accountability is challenging. And in some cases, like the person who has like started, managing the platform or who has set up the platform leaves the organization and no one knows how to manage it. And then because of duplicate platforms, in some cases, we have like duplicate licenses. This rises to costs. And also at the same time, the teams independently have to manage the platform, for example, in terms of the infrastructure and application, there are rising costs of maintenance, and the development team efforts are like wasted. So the productivity is wasted heavily. So instead of writing the actual business logic or business code, the teams spend effort in managing these shadow IT platforms or like, again, the shadow IT HashiCorp offerings. So it increases developer productivity. And we also noticed that because of this, diverse nature of the teams and different segregation of responsibilities, there's lack of collaboration when there are no centralized platforms. For example, it's difficult for us to understand the best practices used by one business area and then replicate it to other business area. And then finally, the security loopholes or the data issues that these platforms have are hard to detect and address, because as a central platform team, we don't have accountability on how many such tools are there and how to manage the data or even maintain the platform. In addition to that, we have some internal requirements to, to consolidate the tools. Why? Because our team has been set up to solve this problem. And the only way we can solve is that we have to provide platforms that must support diverse use cases. Otherwise, it is possible that teams can go and again create their own shadow IT platforms. And at the same time, the teams require autonomy and control in using the platform. What we have noticed over the time is that if the teams don't get enough control or autonomy on how they want to manage or use the tool platform, it's very easy for them to move away from central platforms and set up their own platforms. Because right now everyone has, using cloud, and everyone has credit card so that they can use and to go online and buy the needed tool. And then we also want to provide a compliant, stable, and secure platform based on industry regulations. And if we can't provide a stable platform, it's again like one more option for our end users to move away from central platforms and create shadow IT solutions. And at the same time, we want to create enough governance so that we understand the footprint of the tools and get understandings of how teams are using these platforms, and then manage on the high level so that we can enforce governance and also reduce burden on the development teams. And finally, we want to improve collaboration between teams. For example, we create like a lot of Terraform code, and then but then the sharing has been very less between the teams. So we want to reuse the best practices created by like different teams. And also we believe that like through that we can achieve greater innovation when we collaborate and reuse the stuff rather than starting from scratch all the time. Okay, so now I will talk about how we have solved it using HashiCorp enterprise platforms for addressing the tool sprawl on HashiCorp stack. As I've been talking for a while and then telling that we have diverse customer needs, so ranging from edge to medicine device and medical development. And there are like hundreds of development teams working across the globe. So it is an impractical approach for us to create a platform for supporting each development team needs, because each team has varied use cases, and if creating a separate platform is not scalable for us. And in big companies, the amount of developer to IT operational person ratio is very less. We can't really scale like development teams. So we have evaluated HashiCorp enterprise products for solving our HashiCorp sprawl problem, and they offer the necessary stability and control that we needed for controlling the sprawl. And we have made heavy use of multi-tenancy nature of HashiCorp stack in fulfilling the heterogeneous use cases. And this has given us the control and autonomy that our internal stakeholders need in using HashiCorp stack for solving their problems. Now I will talk about how we controlled the HashiCorp tool sprawl with HashiCorp enterprise stack. So we use Vault heavily for managing secrets. for each business area or product team that's storing secrets involved or managing secrets, we give a namespace for them. And then the central team, we create a kind of, we configure the namespace with some default settings. Then the teams can again have autonomy on like managing their own secret engines, creating new secret engines, etc. And we followed similar pattern for Consul as well. We use Enterprise Console, and there we have chosen admin partitions. So for each business area, we give a Consul admin partition that they can configure and use for their service discovery and service mesh use cases. So some cases they use the admin partition for multi-cloud use case as well, so that for service discovery between multi-cloud use cases. And for Terraform, we went in a different approach. So for each business area, we gave a Terraform organization, and then we configure the Terraform organization as per some initial settings, and then give control to the teams so that they can, manage it like their own Terraform cloud organization. And then we have high-level accountability on what's happening inside this account. And the teams have flexibility to integrate with their own third parties and manage it by themselves. And we have followed a similar pattern with Nomad. So we offer a dedicated namespace for each team, for each product team or business area, and they can use it as needed for non-containerized and containerized workloads. So if you notice here, we haven't done anything new. We made heavy use of the HashiCorp enterprise stack for solving the tools problem and also for solving the heterogeneous needs of our customers. In addition to that, what we have done is that we have created a platform team around HashiCorp stack so that the platform team makes sure that the stack is the HashiCorp products are stable and maintained well and are highly available. Why? Because if we don't maintain the stability of the platform, it is given our global nature and given our customers, global presence, it is possible that they move away from central platforms and set up their own platforms. So it's very important for us to keep the stability of platforms. But at the same time, we want to make sure that the onboarding to the platforms is as smooth as possible. Otherwise, if we ask our internal stakeholders to wait for 2 or 3 days to onboard to a platform, they will be very unhappy with onboarding and they will move away. So it's very important for us to continuously develop and optimize self-service approaches to onboard and configure HashiCorp stack. And finally, the centralized platform team promotes best practices, training and documentation, and to facilitate continuous improvement. And it has really helped us a lot. So whenever an internal stakeholder team wants to onboard to a platform, we give them necessary documentation on how to use the platform, what kind of best practices they can follow, and how they can control the usage and how they can see the logs related to their use and everything. And here I want to give one example on how this has helped us is that if any of you use GitLab in your organization, so recently GitLab has deprecated JWT tokens in 15.9 version of GitLab, and earlier we used to use those JWT tokens for authenticating to Vault. And now, when the announcement was made, so the platform teams were worried that it would break their pipelines. So the central team, we created necessary workshops and documentation to help them to migrate from the old JWT tokens to new GitLab OpenID tokens. And it has really shown us the value that having a platform team and continuously updating on new training and new features has helped us a lot. And I will now briefly touch on like the self-service onboarding that we have developed. So we created a Git-based approval flow for onboarding to HashiCorp platforms, and we encourage inner source or use inner source heavily inside the company. So we have ambassadors, inner source ambassadors that can, approve the merge requests. So the business teams, working across West Coast or even Asia or even China, they can, they can onboard to our platforms with a simple merge request, and some ambassador will approve the merge request. And as soon as merge request is approved, the team can onboard to the platform and start using it. And it reduces turnaround time and improve the rate of adoption. And again, here, we are not doing anything new. We have utilized HashiCorp Terraform providers for creating the automation around self-service. Okay, now let's look at what achievements we have made so far with this kind of consolidation of tool sprawl. So this has really helped us to increase trust with our internal stakeholders, and it has like drastically increased the rate of adoption, because with the automated onboarding and having a centralized team managing SLAs of the platform, the product teams are more attracted or have more trust towards adopting these platforms. And then also the satisfaction has increased drastically in utilizing the platforms. And earlier it was that, the teams were not happy to onboard to the central platforms, but now their perception has changed and they're more willing to use the central IT platforms. And in this journey, we already have consolidated multiple Vault, Consul, and Terraform organizations across geographical regions, and also kind of promoting best practices, kind of taking best practices from different teams and sharing with each other, and how a team has solved a particular problem and advocating it to other teams in the organization. And so far, we have over 150 development teams across globe, and in a different different heterogeneous use cases using the HashiCorp stack. To conclude, for us, this kind of having a centralized platform for all customers across Roche, it has improved governance and security posture of the organization, because it also has driven our customers to move towards like following best practices. For example, earlier our customers used to have secrets in environment variables or something, but now the availability of enterprise secret management solution, they're moving towards storing secrets in Vault and then following best practices in managing secrets. And it reduces the likelihood of compatibility issues and system failure, because now the platform team makes sure that the system is always up and works with HashiCorp when there's an issue in the system. And this also reduces cost of licenses. So now we kind of reduce licenses in different areas. For example, for Terraform Cloud, Vault, and Consul. And also it reduces integration challenges. Now, whenever we have to solve an integration challenge, it's done by only one team, and we don't need to replicate it across multiple teams. And it also improved developer productivity. So roughly around 10 to 15% of development teams' effort in managing their own platforms, or like own HashiCorp platforms, has been saved with this kind of consolidation. Okay. Yeah, that's all from my side. And thank you for your attention.
Cool. Thank you, Hasha. If Hasha, if you're okay, I will ask the audience for if they have any questions.
Yeah,
if that's okay for
definitely.
you? Yeah?
Yes.
So, any questions from the audience that you have? Microphone is coming.
So one of the interesting things there is you obviously manage multiple business units. And so how do they pay for your service as a global team? How do you manage the cost back, the chargeback and items like that? Does that make sense?
Yes. So what we do is that, for example, like on all of these tools, we know, I mean, at least for HashiCorp stack, we can easily understand how the usage of each platform is, like how each business area is using, because we segregate them with respect like namespace or organization. And then we can get cost on that level. And then we can, I mean, show back to the users that this is what they're incurring. Did I answer your question?
Cool. Any other question? No? Okay, cool. Then thank you, Hasha, again, and hopefully next time you will be with us in person. But many thanks.
Yeah, hopefully. Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you,
Ciao.
Sebastian. Thank you all. Thank you.